Hey there you guys, Irene Lyon. Welcome to this video, welcome to this YouTube channel, and welcome to this world of healing trauma, nervous system health, and all things neuroplasticity. I want to talk about a topic today that I am seeing a little bit more. It's a myth, might be considered a myth, and that is that when we've done a lot of good work within this field of healing trauma and releasing survival stress and working on old attachment wounds and gaining really good regulation back into the nervous system, that when we get here, that we are never sidetracked, that we are never dysregulated, that we are never subjected or susceptible, I should say, to feeling pain and sadness and feeling a little low, maybe a little bit anxious, maybe our digestion might go off, maybe our sleep might go off. So there's a thought, and I want to talk about this just a little bit because a lot of the students that I have, and even in other forums that I see, that people do all this good work, and then the moment they feel like they get sidetracked or taken off their path, they go into a spiral of, what am I doing wrong? I must not be doing anything right, and all the other stuff I've done hasn't been for, it's done nothing. And that's not true. I'm going to parallel this to kind of the way that we have traditionally seen healing in our world is very, I shall say, medical. Let's just say, I'll use a very simple example. You have an infection, you go to the doctor, they're like, yep, that's a real infection. Here's some antibiotics, finish them the whole course. And typically, because they work, it goes away, end, right? So there's a start point and an end point. It's very binary. It's like sick, not sick. I know I'm oversimplifying that, but bear with me. So that's how we have seen healing. Maybe we could even think of like a broken bone. Break a bone, get it fixed by an orthopedic surgeon, heal, do some rehab, and then we hope that everything goes well and everything is okay afterwards. Healing at the nervous system level, deep attachment wounds, early trauma, developmental trauma, surgical trauma, growing up in a household that wasn't safe. With that, we're dealing with something that's very different, and we cannot compare them and think of them as the same, where I'm going to do this healing work, I'm going to do a lot of good work, whether it's with me or one of my colleagues, and then it's over. Then I don't have to think about it ever again. And even just the other day, for me, I can't remember the exact context, it was a little while ago, but I started to feel some very deep terror and sympathetic nervous system. That's our fight-flight nervous system. If you haven't watched some of my videos on the breakdowns of the nervous system, be sure to do that. I will pop them in the show more section. But I was feeling something, and because of, thankfully, what I do, occupational hazard and skill set, I was able to track and feel it. And there were no memories. There was no ability to know this is what this is from. I had some ideas, but the key was that I felt it. I didn't fear the response. And I knew, like, this isn't me becoming dysregulated. This is just another deep layer deciding to come up to the surface. And here's what's really interesting. In our world of humanity as humans, when our safety gets higher, when things are going really well, somehow the unconscious, that nervous system, that autonomic nervous system that holds all of these somatic memories, all these deeply stored terror responses, fear responses that we couldn't cope with because we just couldn't when we were young, some part of our physiology, it's almost like it gets a knock on the door and it's like, hey, we're in a really good place now. You have a lot of capacity. You have more resiliency. You know how to navigate these waves of activation. We're going to give you a little layer to work on. It's like the onion peels, right? Peeling the layers of the onion off. There's always another layer. I know lots of you don't want to hear that, but that is just the truth. And so when we're doing this work, whether, again, you're working with me or someone else, and you know you've done lots of work and you've felt lots of time, maybe stretches of days and months and years where things have been really good, and then something throws you off and you feel that you're a little not so on it. Maybe your memory goes, maybe your sleep gets thrown off, maybe your digestion starts to get a bit funky again. Have faith and trust that all the other work that you have done is still there, because it is. This is the beauty of the nervous system and neuroplasticity. That work hasn't gone away. However, you can sabotage it if you throw all your education out the window and you don't come back to the basics of, here I am, I'm in my environment, I can sense this, it's not comfortable, and I'm gonna be with it, I'm gonna sit with it and feel it. Now, of course, to get to that point requires practice, it requires foundations, it requires trust and having a few cycles where you actually say to yourself, or you feel, I should say, oh yeah, that time that I felt this blip and I was with it and I didn't give it a lot of attention, maybe you took a little bit of a rest, that actually shifted and I moved through it really well. And as I mentioned a second ago, the more resiliency and the more capacity we build, our physiology will give us the bigger things to deal with. They'll give us the bigger rocks to handle, as opposed to in the beginning, it was just little pebbles that we were having to navigate. The more capacity we have, I can't say this enough, we will actually be able to process the deeper things that have been sitting in our, well, let's call it unconscious somatic system, stored in what's called those procedural memories that we trap because we couldn't process them earlier on. The other thing to understand is that when we have more resiliency, we might be able to put ourselves into situations that are a little bit more stressful because we do have that capacity. So it isn't so much that when we're regulated, we just coast and everything is peachy keen all the time. It's that we're in life, we're regulated or more regulated than we were before. And if a stressor comes in, let's just say, for example, someone cuts you off in traffic, and that we want that to raise a survival response. If we didn't, we wouldn't have the skills to navigate to get out of the way. But what we want to know is that when that happens, we have the witness, that more upper brain witness, seeing this happening, going, whoa, I just almost got into an accident, but I was able to course correct, and now I'm feeling really activated. That does not mean that your system has been dysregulated. It's almost this momentary blip in time where the system has been activated. Your job is to then, if you can, pull over in this instance and allow yourself to feel the physiology come down. Give it a chance to come down, because it will. And this is what we want. We want our survival responses to kick in when they have to. And if we get into a stressful event like this, know how to navigate them and bring them down. I'll post a few other videos around how to navigate shock traumas in the Show More section, so you can watch those. Anyways, all this to say, as a quick review, the myth that when we get regulated, when we reach big capacity and resiliency, that we will not be impacted by traumatic events, that is not true. We also know that the more capacity we get, we start to process the deeper stuff that hasn't had a chance to come out, because it knows somehow that our system, our physiology can't handle that big rock. I gave that example. So when we are doing this work really well, we actually run the risk, and I use that word risk with air quotes, of feeling things that are more intense than what we might think will happen. And it's just because we are more resilient, we have more regulation, and we have more capacity. All right. Thank you for listening to this. Thank you for watching. I hope this has given you a little insight into maybe people that you know, maybe yourself, and to give yourself the benefit of the doubt. If you know that you've been doing this work, then you have been doing the work, and really honor that and know that we are fluid, resilient creatures. We're not robots. We will feel things. We will have to process things in real time. And when you have the tools and skills and the awareness to notice them, the ride, so to speak, on this nervous system journey becomes a little easier. All right. Thank you so much for being here, and we will catch you next time.